24, live another day. Hour 3 is now over, but we're just getting started here on 24 Live on post-show recaps. And now, here are two guys who are about to get busier than Margot Alhazari, Rob Cesternino, and Ron Fairbanks, a.k.a. Josh Wigler.
How's it going, man? It's me, Ron. It's your good friend, Ron Fairbanks.
Ron, how have you been?
Oh, I've been great. I've just been binge-watching 24, just been catching up, waiting for Jack Bauer.
Had the guys from WikiLeaks not messed with the computer, would anybody have bought Ron Fairbanks as an actual real name?
Not as it applies to a dude that looks like Jack Bauer, I don't think.
Yeah, Jack Bauer, maybe it's a little bit of a disguise.
It doesn't strike me as a Ron Fairbanks.
Yeah. I mean, maybe could we just not go with the default Jack Bauer look also?
Ron Fairbanks is like definitely the name of a mole.
Yeah.
If I'm on Mole Patrol and I'm looking at names of possible suspects, Ron Fairbanks is high on the list. Very suspicious.
All right, so we're going to talk about, I thought it was a pretty fun hour. We were all over the place tonight. That Jack was moving around. We had some fun stuff with Kate Morgan, some crazy stuff going on back at Casa Al-Hazari. And so it's basically like the Big Brother house over there. So a lot to do here tonight on 24 Live. We've got the live chat going on postshowrecaps.com. Johnny DeSilvera is holding it down there. He's very excited. He was pumped up and tweeting all night about the show. We've also got your hashtag PS recaps. And then, of course, you can send your questions into us that we can take on the show on our YouTube channel at postshowrecaps.com/YouTube.
Yes, let's do it. Let's get into it.
Let's get into it. And, of course, you could also subscribe to our 24 only feed on iTunes, which has been right there in the top 10 of all the TV and film podcasts on iTunes at postshowrecaps.com/24 iTunes, or subscribe to any of our shows any way you'd like by clicking the podcast tab on postshowrecaps.com.
Sounds good.
Any broad stroke notes that you want to hit on before we start to get into what happened here tonight?
I'll say that I thought tonight was definitely a little goofier than the 2-hour premiere. There were some classic 24-isms that were going on here. I thought that the Chloe story was kind of veering towards Kim Bauer territory a little bit here and there. So there was a few moments that I thought were a little shaky, but ultimately it was a really fun hour. You got some really good moves out of Jack Bauer. And yeah, hard to complain. New 24 season's chugging along. We got to meet the Starks a little better. So yeah, let's dive into it. There's a lot to talk about.
Yeah, definitely some scandalous things happening in the Al-Hazari house, so a lot to do. Let's start off, and let's get to that Chloe scene. Let's go through it, and let's talk about that. So Jack gets dropped off at the pub, no time to stop and have a Guinness, that he's looking for what's going on, and he needs to find the drone control box, and instead he finds Sloan. Is that the guy's name?
Derek Yates.
Oh, Yates. Sorry about that. Yates. He finds Yates dead in the bathroom, and no sign of who we turned out to be Simone Al-Hazari. And Jack and Chloe are off following them, and what happens is they end up following her into the subway, into the tube.
Into the tube. Jack Bauer has a good history of kicking ass in subway stations. This wasn't his finest subway station scene, but it was pretty good. And, you know, hats off to Simone. I thought that was a pretty inventive way to get out of Jack Bauer's clutches.
Yeah. So when Simone is able to then take the cut on her leg and then rub the blood on her face and say, this guy's trying to rape me. Were you surprised Jack Bauer's able to get away from that? It seemed like there was like two guys that tried to grab him, and then he sort of ran for it, and nobody really chased him.
I guess I'd be surprised if Jack Bauer wasn't like a robot at this point. Isn't he like a cyborg? Have we established that after the premiere? He's got robot enhancements in his wrist. He's almost 60 years old. There's no way he's running around unless he's at least partially robotic at this point. So I think Robo Bauer was able to handle himself there.
Seemed like that people should have given him a little more trouble in the subway as the subway rapist. It's
one of those moments, I guess, where everyone was like kind of shocked and didn't know what to do, and like two people were ready to spring into action. Jack Bauer can take down two people in the subway, no problem.
And maybe the fact he had a gun also. Where he's like, okay, let's not mess with this guy.
Yeah, that doesn't help.
Yeah. And so he ends up, chasing her through the subway station, and then Simone is able to escape through some open grates, and then she's able to get up to the street. Now, meanwhile, Chloe is on the lookout, okay? And
Yeah.
she's waiting for her. They know where she's going to come out of. It's only a couple different ways. And Chloe gets distracted. And we talked about this last week. Where is Chloe's kid? Where is Prescott?
Now we know.
Now we know.
He's in that CTU in the sky.
So Chloe
hanging out with Uncle Edgar.
Chloe gets distracted and sees a little boy, and so I was buying it a little bit of the. I thought it was them for a second, and I was like, oh, did Chloe like lose custody of Prescott? But
Right.
it turns out that they're actually dead, and I'll ask you in a moment if you think there's anything more to the story than that. But you did not find this believable that she would get distracted over this?
That wasn't even necessarily it. I think that for Bauer, who came back as such a stone cold killer last week, to kind of get into the car, sort of ream Chloe for half a second about losing the suspect, and then not to immediately go figuring out how to find the suspect, but to take like 2-3 minutes to talk about their feelings, felt a little weird. Felt a little un-Jack-like to me. But I think that's where my big grievance came in. Is I don't mind the backstory. I think the backstory is great. It certainly makes sense why Chloe would go all goth after losing her husband and her kid. But I just didn't love the way that information was delivered. I thought that they could have done a much better job with this scene.
And again, it's 24 and it's not reality, but anybody that would go through that probably would have a lot of issues. So I guess it's believable that that could be the case. But did you take everything in that story at face value? And do you think that they really are gone? Do you think that it's not going to be some reveal that they're actually just missing, and that's going to come out later on in the season?
Captured by the Chinese, only to be revealed later on with severe PTSD of their own?
Well, the fact is that Chloe made it sound like that this happened because they were trying to do a hit on her because that she knew about Jack Bauer.
Right.
Basically like a Tony Almeida.
Yes, much like a Tony Almeida. I think it's certainly possible that Chloe's story is accurate, that she really was being targeted for her role in Jack's disappearance. I think it's also possible that it was just a total freak accident, and this is what Chloe has decided to blame it on. When you lose people, you want to kind of come up with any explanation possible, and this is something that she could be grasping onto. I don't know that we'll be getting too much follow-up in terms of are these two still alive. I feel like that would be a lot to cram into this season. I feel like this season has a lot of business to take care of. But I think that my hunch would be that Chloe is on the money and somebody was coming after her, and unfortunately her family paid the price.
All right, Emad Khan wants to say, everything Jack touches turns to ash in his mouth, and he has finally affected Chloe's life for the worse too. That was so sad. Yep, and Jack is trying to swing it to get her back. He says to her, you can't bring back the ones you love, but you can honor their lives.
Yeah, and that's a very good point. It's something that Heller says in day 6 when Audrey comes back from the Chinese, but in a damaged state. Heller tells him, you're cursed, and everything you touch turns to death. One way or the other, everything you touch dies. And yeah, it seems like it's kind of affected Chloe too. And I think it's interesting. It kind of sets Chloe up on the same path as Bauer. Bauer has lost just about everything. Kim is still out there, but he'll never be able to, communicate with her again, probably, unless things take a really radical turn this season. So it kind of puts Chloe and Jack on an even playing field for really basically the first time. And I think that's an interesting mirror. That was something that they were kind of going for with the Tony Almeida story back in season 7. He's obviously out of the picture, so I think it's an interesting mirror to have between the two co-leads of Live Another Day. So I think it's interesting. I'm totally on board with the story, and it gives you a reason to really care about Chloe and what she's been through and what she's going through. I just thought that they could have delivered it a little better. They could have not stopped down in the middle of this, terrorist chasing, potential car chase, and they could have done stuff. And I just thought that the way that they conveyed it was a little sloppy.
Do you feel like that Chloe should be more hesitant to be helping Jack Bauer if, because of her relationship with Jack Bauer, that led to the death of her kid and her husband?
Yeah, she seems to be pretty okay with helping Jack right now, right?
Yeah. She doesn't seem to have any hard feelings towards Jack, and that seems a little un-Chloe-like also. You would expect her to say, like I'm done helping you, Jack. Now, he did break her out of prison, but then after he double-crossed her last week and then came and blew up everything, busted up WikiLeaks and followed her with a tracking device, you would think that would be the last straw for her.
Yeah, you would think that she would be done with this. But I think that now at this point she's been drawn in enough and has seen those schematics for the drones and knows what can be done with them if these terrorists are able to control the drones, that I think that kind of hero that's not too deep inside of her, it's pretty close to the surface. I think that's starting to take precedence here. And she's done enough work with Jack over the years to know that he's the guy you want in the foxhole for this situation.
Now, meanwhile, I thought that Kate Morgan had a pretty badass night.
Yeah, she's awesome. I love that character. She's really good.
She's doing a good job. And she basically, what's the name of the drug dealer?
Basher.
Basher. Well, she bashered him over the head and knocked him out and took him into custody and basically was threatening to torture him, but he said he was not going to say anything. And later on, she has a plan for him. And so I'm just going to go in chronological order here.
Yeah, do it.
Okay, so now we get our first shot of Mark Boudreau, and so he has this plan. He wants to send Jack Bauer to the Russians, right?
Yes.
Now, isn't there this plan is all well and good, but isn't there one major missing piece of this plan?
What do you think that is?
That they don't have Jack Bauer?
They could probably stand to have Jack Bauer. They might do well if they have Ron Fairbanks.
Right. Like, you can make all the plans in the world for what you're going to do when you have Jack Bauer. But until you have Jack Bauer, I think that's really counting the chickens before they hatch.
Yeah, that's just one of many problems that Mark Boudreau has this episode.
Yeah, so anyway, Mark, he's, comes up with this plan to, go and send Jack Bauer to the Russians, but we're going to keep a tight loop on this.
Yeah, keep it inside, in the inner circle. This is important.
Keep it a tight loop on this. And of course, President Heller is going to have to sign off on this, which, did you see that coming, where that Mark was going to forge President Heller's signature?
Of course, he's the mole.
Well, now this was the first really underhanded thing that we've seen Mark actually do. Like, everything else that he's done before, you could say that he has, on some level, you could say he has the president's best interests in mind. But here, he certainly is now going behind the president's back. This is the first time that we could say he actually is a douche and not just being overprotective of the Hellers.
Right. This is him literally breaking the law at a very, very high level.
And tonight we're starting to definitely see the cracks in the Audrey and Mark showmance.
Yeah, the door is open. The door is open for a Fairbanks showmance.
The door is certainly open, and Audrey did not like how Mark talked to President Heller last week.
And can you blame her? He was being a real jerk to the guy, but it turns out he had a point too.
Yeah. All right, so more on that. And so Jack and Chloe figure out that the person who they were tracking is Simone Al-Hazari, and she is the daughter of Margot Al-Hazari, and she was behind a big the Cairo bombing. And what is their connection to President Heller?
So her husband, Margot's husband, was killed in a drone strike.
Yes.
Fairly recently. So I think that they are thinking, well, let's turn the tables on the leader of the country that toasted my husband.
Yeah, a little Homelandy, all of this drone payback business.
A little Homelandy. A little Homelander.
Well, because Homeland is also by the same show creators.
Yes, Howard Gordon is the man behind 24 and the man behind Homeland. And I think actually there's a story about Howard Gordon coming to Kiefer Sutherland and saying, hey, I have this idea for a new season of 24 if you're interested. And he started laying out the plot of the season. And Kiefer was like, don't you want to just do that on Homeland? And Howard Gordon said, no, this is a 24 story. We got to do it with Bauer. So even Kiefer thought that this was going to be a Homeland story. But I guess there's going to be some stuff that's very uniquely Bauer. But right now, I can see how it's a little Homelandy.
Yeah. Okay, well, so we then follow Simone back to the Al-Harazi house. And so we get to see some interaction between mom and daughter, and we get to meet basically the whole Al-Harazi family.
Yeah, what do you think their house words are?
I don't know.
Drones are coming?
Drones are coming, or we're watching.
Husband is coming?
We're watching. So, all right, let's talk a little bit about the family dynamic. Okay, so Margot is the patriarch of the family. She is in charge. Yes. She has her daughter Simone that she sends out to go do quote unquote like horrible things, and right. she's out there. Then we also have the son who is like the hacker guy.
Yeah, he's like their Chloe.
And then we also have Simone's husband who is Navid.
Navid.
Yeah, and Navid is a little broken up about this.
I don't see what he is bringing to the table, this guy. First off, I just don't get it, and I think that he's a little out of his league with Simone. I think Simone's a little too good for him.
Okay, so what happens to Navid? Is Navid does he get killed by Margot, or is he the guy who defects and gives up crucial information to Jack?
That's very interesting. Well, this guy, Navid, is going to die. That's not a question. Navid dead by the end of Live Another Day. I would be very shocked if it's otherwise. As for how, that is a good question. I could see it being that Margot kills him to preserve their secrets and does it as a, kind of trying to test Simone's loyalty, and then Simone, who's very much in love with her husband, goes and, rats out to Bauer. Like, I could see that playing out. Or I could see this guy defecting and has to be, he has to wear a wire or something, and he gets blown up that way.
Traditionally on 24, what happens to the bad guy with cold feet?
The bad guy with cold feet never makes it. The bad guy with cold feet usually gets found out very quickly and just dealt with that way, or gets turned by Bauer and pretty much immediately dies.
Yeah, that basically he's like the guy that's like, all right, I'll tell you everything you need to know, and then he gets shot by like a sniper on like another roof.
Yeah, this guy's gonna have something really, really important to say, and then he'll be dead 5 seconds later.
Okay, but Navid, that I thought this was interesting that it gets said to him, Navid, you look like you swallowed a rat, which I thought was very flowery language.
That's what Margot says?
Yeah, I think that's what that's what Margot said about Navid seeing Simone after she gets back from going with Yates.
Yeah, the Yorkshire Widow is not a Navid fan.
Yeah, absolutely not.
Not a fan.
Yeah, and basically, Navid, don't be mad because she was just doing what needed to be done.
I don't know, man. I'd have a hard time with this one if I was Navid.
Yeah.
I'd be a little bummed out about this.
A little bummed out, but whatever. I'm not sure what Navid is bringing to the table. I'm not sure what is his job. We never found out what his job is.
He's just the red shirt. He's the team's professional red shirt. That's it.
Yeah.
Like we're gonna need somebody to die here. Naveed, that's gonna be your job. My son's gonna deal with the computers. My daughter's gonna be the sexy assassin. I'm the shot caller. You're the guy who's gonna have to die at some point for some reason.
Yeah, and of course, Yates's contraption has the old non-standard hardware bus.
Right. Yes, it's a beautiful contraption.
Yes, and we saw last week, Yates was always taking everything apart, so that's what he was doing. He was working on his non-standard hardware bus.
Yeah, and the son this week was doing some screwdriver action too.
Yeah, well, it's a non-standard hardware bus.
I guess that's what you got to do.
Okay, so then we see Jack, and he goes back to WikiLeaks. Now, what's the name of the guy who runs the WikiLeaks on this show?
Adrian Cross.
Adrian Cross, more like Double Cross, right?
Yeah, man, I was so ready to be his best friend, his new best friend. I thought that he was going to be my British Tony Almeida, and then he betrayed my boy.
Yeah.
I was very upset.
I thought he has a good line, though, with Jack, where he's like, you have a habit of coming in here and asking people to do you favors when you have a gun.
Yeah, I like this character a lot. Even though he's not on Jack's side right now, I think that Michael Wincott is the actor who plays him. He was the bad guy in The Crow. He's from a bunch of other stuff, and he's got this great voice. He's got this great look. He's got a unique role in 24 history. Like, we haven't really seen a computer hacker of this level of organization before, and with these ideals. So I like the character a lot, and I think that the actor's doing a really good job too. He's one of my new favorites of the season.
All right, so we go back to Kate Morgan, and she's having a conversation in the car, and basically that we have Basher, and he's like, I'm not going to talk, and so that's cool, that's fine. And so they end up bringing him to like the hideout of the other gang that's kind of wants to torture this guy, and all of a sudden Basher changes his tune really quick.
Yeah, Basher does not want anything to do with these dudes.
Yeah, absolutely not. And so he starts singing like a canary and basically giving up all of the goods.
I like that guy. I hope we see more Basher. I would be down for more Basher.
Wait, does he have any more relevant information?
No, absolutely not. He just brings like sweet British thug flavor. I feel like this season of 24 needs as much of that as possible because I thought he was great.
Yeah. And so
maybe he can hook Bauer up with some heroin later in the day. Who knows?
Oh, well, Jack could use a fix.
Yeah, he could use a fix.
Yeah. And so then later on we see that Tanner is on his way to go to a deposition.
Yep. Yeah, Tanner is in trouble. That guy's in deep.
He's in trouble, and especially from the previews next week, because it looks like Jack Bauer is going to go pay Tanner a visit.
And again, that's another situation that usually ends poorly. If Jack goes to hang out with the key witness usually does not walk away.
It's not a good thing.
Not a good thing.
So now back at the house, Margot also is stitching up Simone. What do you think of the bedside manner of Margot Al-Harazi?
Yeah, I thought it was it's a really nice residence. I'd like Margot's abilities as a florist.
Yeah, well, she's very multi-talented. She's a florist, she's a medic, she's a master strategist, she's a voyeur.
She loves voyeurism.
She really does.
Big fan.
She's a big fan of it.
That's her category.
Now, basically, it seemed like she was trying to hurt her as she was stitching her up.
Yeah, she's trying to kind of give her some tough love and basically be like, hey, listen, don't screw this up. This is kind of very important. No room for error here. This is a very big day for me. I don't want you to screw it up. Let's just go. And I think sometimes, what's the phrase? No pain, no gain?
I thought it was an interesting phrase that she's used with her, that she says that basically the lesson she wanted her to learn is if you think you're safe, remind yourself that you are not.
Right.
And I felt like that was an interesting thing to be saying in this scene. And then even more interesting what Simone then goes on to do next.
To go and bone out her husband?
Yeah. Why would if you think you're safe, remind yourself that you're not. Why did that spawn on the next actions that she takes?
Well, she thinks that her marriage might be in some trouble. She's been gone for a few weeks, and I don't know. let's get it on. Let's fix things up. Let's get things safe again.
Okay. So we come back to see Kate Morgan driving, and she's in the car with her partner, Eric, right?
Eric.
Eric. And Eric's like, hey, you really impressed me today.
Yeah, Eric, I think, is kind of feeling it.
He's feeling it. He's been very impressed with Kate Morgan.
He turned his opinion around on her pretty fast.
Pretty quick. Only like an hour ago he was not so hot on her.
Yeah, really angling after her job, doesn't want her around at all, and now he's like, this is Kate Morgan. Not bad. Not bad.
And he says, look, and he asked the question that we all wanted to know. You're basically, this great CIA field operative. How did you miss what your husband was doing?
That was a little forward.
Yeah. He's like, I gotta know. Everybody's been asking. How is it you know everything that Jack Bauer is doing, could not see what your husband was doing?
And usually when someone starts off a sentence by saying, like, look, listen, no offense, but you know where that's going.
It's about to be something very offensive.
Very offensive.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's where it's headed.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay. So then we have. Did that satisfy you that there's not that much going on there?
Between Ritter and Morgan?
Yeah, or as far as Morgan and her husband.
I think that it does seem like that's going to be a little bit more than just her kind of nursing this wound. I feel like they wouldn't have really brought it up that way if there wasn't something a little bit more important there. And listen, man, I said it last week. I'm not ruling Kate Morgan out of the mole hunt. She's part of my mole patrol.
I don't know if she's part of the mole patrol for me, but I kind of feel like is her husband in the mix?
Well, her husband was definitely, he was selling secrets and.
Do we see her husband as a character this season?
Yeah, I could see that happening. I could definitely see that happening, especially if he's still kind of local and incarcerated, and they need to bust him out for some intel that he's been selling. I could see him coming into the fray here.
Yeah, and so I kind of feel like the fact that we brought this up again, I feel like we're definitely getting something with Kate Morgan's husband.
There's going to be more to the story.
Yeah.
One way or the other, there's going to be more to the story. I'm just a little suspicious because Eric Ritter, he brings up a good point. How are you so good at finding Jack Bauer, but you had no idea what's going on with your husband? Maybe because she set her husband up. Mole Patrol.
Mole Patrol, okay. So we hear from Navarro, and basically Kate Morgan is headed to the same place that Jack is heading because they want to talk to the drone pilot too. They want to talk to Tanner.
Steve Navarro is a bit of a stiff.
Little bit.
I'm not a big Steve Navarro fan. He's a bit of a dink. The bad dink.
The bad dink. Oh no. Okay, so we get to the whole thing at the American Embassy, and I thought this actually plays out in a pretty cool way. So first, Audrey goes to see her dad, and basically it's like, Dad, maybe we shouldn't go. And he's like, Did old Mark put you up to this? I was wondering what took him so long.
I love Heller. Heller's so great. His mannerisms are amazing. And he just, like, lounging in his bathrobe, just chilling out for a little while. He's like, I forgot to put my pants on.
Sooner or later, we're going to have to wear them, but I didn't think it was going to be so soon. I liked how he changed the subject here. He's like, so, how are things going with you and Mark? And Audrey gives a very unconvincing, we're good.
Yeah, we're all right. What?
We're good.
Why does no one think we're good?
Yeah. And so a little unconvincing. And so I think we're really getting hit over the head now that contrary to what Audrey is saying, Mark and Audrey, not good.
Not good. Probably not going to make it. And I think that Heller is probably thinking the same thing. He gives her like this lingering look after she leaves too, where he seems a little suspicious of the whole Mark Boudreau thing. So I think he's not really feeling it for Audrey.
Yeah. All right.
In Heller's defense, he's obviously he's a little dull these days. Things are not working the way they used to, but he's always been really in tune with Audrey's romantic life. He sniffed out the Jack Bauer thing pretty quickly. I feel like he's got a sense for these kinds of things.
Now, can I give you a theory that somebody had? I'm not sure if somebody tweeted this to me or if somebody wrote it in the comments last week. But basically, that somebody had a theory that the president that Mark is messing with his medicine, and basically Mark is responsible for whether he's giving him sugar pills or whatever. He's giving him medication that's causing this condition to be worse.
Mole Patrol.
Mole Patrol is right. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm all about that. All about that because I'm on the hunt for Mark Boudreau. I don't trust this guy.
All right, so Chloe starts working on Jack's credentials, and basically Adrian is like, actually, let's screw him up here.
What a jerk! What a total jerk move. It's a total punk move.
His assistant's like, yeah, but he's gonna get arrested. He's like, yeah, that's the point. Let's get this guy out of here.
Yeah, he gets all creepy with her. He gives her like he cups the cheek.
Yeah.
Very, very uncomfortable.
Okay, so Jack is blending in with the protesters, and everything is looking okay. Again, I thought Jack Bauer could have used a better disguise.
This is Jack Bauer's thing. There's he apparently, he's a master of languages. He goes undercover pretty regularly, but he always just looks like Jack Bauer. He always looks like such a cop. And there's even in day 8, he's supposed to play a German arms dealer at one point. And he just speaks in an American accent. And the guy's like, you're a German, but you have an American accent. He's like, yeah, I grew up here.
I feel like to the extent of a Jack Bauer disguise is like putting on aviator sunglasses.
When he was the German arms dealer, he put on just straight-up glasses. That was literally the best he's done. Like, he could have had, like, the mustache attached to it, and that might have been even a little bit better.
Yeah. I feel like Jack Bauer went to like the Clark Kent school of disguises.
Yeah, or maybe he just lives in a world where, I don't know, no one recognizes him as Jack Bauer, kind of Superman style, but he could put in a little extra effort.
Like, I know a wig might be too much to ask for, but how about a hat?
A hat would be great.
Yeah, even Heisenberg mastered the art of disguise better than Jack Bauer.
Yeah, he could put on a hat, he could shave his head. I don't think he could grow a goatee this quickly, but, there's things he could do.
There's things he could do. A baseball cap, even.
A baseball cap would be great.
Baseball cap would be great. Anyway, so now we go back to, before we go back to Jack Bauer trying to get in the gate, we get a sort of a, okay, so it's I got some time codes for you here.
Let's do it.
It's 1:51 and 28 seconds. Naveed, he's hitting the bottle.
Yeah, that's kind of early in the day.
A little early in the afternoon, but it's 5 o'clock somewhere, right?
It's like tea time, right?
Yeah. Okay, so he's hitting the bottle, and basically Simone says, look, I love you, and Naveed says, it's not even that you were hooking up with the hacker guy. That's not even what bothers me. I'm getting cold feet. I don't know if I can do this. And last night he had a nightmare that he killed a bunch of people.
This guy sucks.
So,
and he's the worst terrorist in a long time on this show.
Simone is like, hey, it's no small thing to kill a man.
Well,
right?
Naveed knows a thing or two about small things, I think.
No small thing to kill a man. And so basically this goes right into MO time. And
MO time is short. MO time turns into something else pretty quick.
Okay, so that's at 1:51 and 28 seconds. Okay. All right, now we'll come back to Prime Minister Heller. He's at the what Parliament?
Is he at Parliament? I believe he is, yeah.
Yeah. And so the Prime Minister says, hey, I don't think this is a good idea.
And Heller's like, nah, man, I got this.
Nah, come on. He's like, having enemies means you stood for something.
Right.
Okay.
Bad call.
And basically, Mark is saying to Audrey, I don't think this is a good idea. And Audrey even says, Mark, you have to stop making decisions for everybody.
Yeah, Audrey's not thrilled with Mark Boudreau.
Nobody is.
Not into the Boudreau.
Yeah, and say, hey, that time is over. I'm not in a coma anymore.
Yeah.
You're treating me that. Audrey coma is over. This is non-coma Audrey.
Yeah, Audrey has feelings.
Yeah, so Mark is still trying to, call the shots. And so President Heller speaks, and it's not going well.
It goes very poorly very quickly. In fact, it like immediately becomes the simulation that Mark Boudreau laid out.
But you know what? It was actually better than I feel like that he didn't even really get to start.
You think that's better?
I think
Like,
it was.
at least you could have said something. That was horrible. That's so embarrassing.
No, I feel like had the scenario that they role played with Mark the other day was worse because that was like a press conference, where this was just like everybody was like, "Boo, boo, Heller, you suck." It's like, what are you gonna do?
It was really bad. It was awkward.
It was bad. That was bad. Yeah, not since Rob was doing stand-up comedy have we seen such a worse reception.
Was it really bad when you were doing stand-up comedy, Rob?
Pretty bad.
Yeah.
Pretty bad. Much like going to speak to Parliament.
Okay.
That was very close.
Good to know.
All right, so that's at 150. Well, that's at 154. Okay.
Okay.
And then again, still all before 2:00, we cut from President Heller in front of Parliament to Simone and Naveed in bed post-coitus.
And he's shirtless and under the covers.
How many minutes later was this?
So the first one was what, 151, you said?
That was that they started their conversation at 151. And now again, the episode ends at 2:00.
And when Heller is
we haven't even gotten to Ron Fairbanks trying to get through security yet.
Oh my God. Yeah, listen. He's very nervous. It's been a while.
This is
this
literally
thing, this kind of thing happens.
Less than 5 minutes later.
Less than 3, basically. This is quick.
Yeah. Yeah.
This kind of thing happens.
Yeah, because I wrote in my notes that when Kat Stark is looking at the security cameras, it's 1:54 and 18 seconds. So literally, like I don't even know how they undressed and got into bed that fast.
They're very happy to see each other. Maybe too happy.
Maybe too happy. And again, this is Naveed is even drinking. You would think that this would slow this down.
Yeah, well, he just started drinking, so maybe it hadn't gotten to that point yet.
Okay. Anyway, so Jack Bauer tries to get in, and he gives him the old Ron Fairbanks ID.
Love the Ron Fairbanks ID. I think that we better get some Ron Fairbanks apparel. Toot sweet. I'm going to need a Ron Fairbanks shirt pretty soon.
Is Ron Fairbanks on Twitter yet?
No. That's going to happen soon.
Are we sure at this point?
It's possible. Let's see.
Ron Fairbanks. Let's do a quick search.
No, it doesn't exist.
Oh boy. Somebody's got to get on that.
Go right now.
Got to get on Ron Fairbanks. Okay. So then Jack Bauer gets through, and they realize that it's not him. I thought this was really good what Jack does here. So he basically sneaks off. He mingles with the protesters. He gets a gun. He shoots 2 randos in the knee. And it's like, they're shooting at us!
That was a pretty good move.
That was great. That was my favorite part of the episode.
Do you think that might have been Bauer's best move of the season so far?
So far. That might have been...
I mean, the whole break into the CIA and breaking out was elaborate and very cool, but this was a great spur-of-the-moment move.
Quick thinking by Bauer. Very great. And so he runs away, and then basically here comes Kate Morgan and Eric, and they're coming after Jack, but they don't want to just basically waste a bunch of civilians.
Which is fair.
That's fair.
And I think that's all right.
So Jack Bauer is able to get away. Now, what's Jack's next move? Do you think he reconnects with Chloe, or is he just going to go on foot?
Well, you mean physically reconnect with Chloe, or try to link up with her remotely?
Well, basically, does Chloe know that Jack got sabotaged by Adrian?
I think that she, at this point, has put it together, yeah.
I think so. And is Chloe going to be in danger that she's there with them, or are they going to let her leave?
I think that she's going to be not looking pretty good. I think that it's not good that she is in this guy's clutches right now. And I think it's going to be very hypocritical because he's all about the free flow of information, but I think that he's not going to want her to get out of there while Jack Bauer is still on the lam. And maybe it's going to be because he wants to protect her and he wants her to be okay, but I don't know. Don't trust this Adrian Cross right now.
And where is everybody's favorite Serbian Belichick this week?
He was there. He was at Open Cell. He's hanging out with Adrian Cross. I think he's making friends.
Okay. All right.
That's all that Belichick wants to do.
Let's take some of your questions here as we go along on 24 Live. Of course, that's why we do the show live, because we want to hear from you guys. Send them in. Use the hashtag PSRecaps or post them on this very YouTube video at postshowrecaps.com/YouTube. And Scott St. Pierre has been putting your questions together for everything that happened between the hours of 1 o'clock and 2 o'clock on 24. Okay, Emad wants to know, everything Jack Bauer touches, we actually touched on this earlier on in the show. Very, very sad about Jack and Chloe finding out about that news.
Yeah, it was tough. I mean, I don't want to make light of the situation. I feel bad for Chloe. I didn't like the way it was done, but I'm feeling very bad for Chloe these days. It's a tough time for her.
Yeah. So you feel like that on the show, you felt like that note was melodramatic to hit there?
It was. I think, for the first segment of the episode, right at the end, it felt a little weird. It felt like the placement wasn't great. It felt like something that they could have built up a little bit more.
Yeah, I also felt like it was a little bit of a disservice to Chloe that she's been so accomplished in her time that you would think that she would be able to focus on, basically her job in a really, really important moment.
Yeah, I think so too. And I think that, this show likes to give its main characters, afflictions of the season. Jack Bauer being hooked on heroin, Jack Bauer momentarily suffering PTSD from being in prison for 20 months. It likes to do that every now and then. And if this is going to be Chloe's big thorn in her side, where it's really going to take her out of doing her job, it might get a little old.
Okay. Spicy Wasabi X says, strong ratings for the debut of 24 with 8 million. Is this a green light for season 10? What do you think, Josh? That you've probably been following this closer than I have.
Yeah, those are good numbers, I think. 8 million for a show that's been off the air for 4 years, and during a time when 8 million for many shows on cable TV, on network TV rather, right now. That's pretty good. Those are good numbers right now. So I think if 24 wants to come back, if it can hold on to those numbers, then I think that there's certainly a reason to do it, but I think it's going to depend on where the story is going.
How do you think that those numbers fell in line with expectations from Fox?
From Fox, I think probably a little lower.
You think that their expectations were lower, or you feel like...
I think Fox's expectations were higher than what they got. Probably not too much higher, but I think that they probably, they've been marketing the hell out of this, and I think that they probably wanted, something that's a little more in line with, A Walking Dead, which is, they're getting like 11 million like it's nothing on a bum episode rather than a premiere. So I think, probably a little bit lower than they wanted, but I think good enough.
Okay. Let's go to Spyrite from Jeff, who wants to know, seriously, how does that guard not have a Jack wanted poster anyway? Yeah, it seems like, these guys were hard after Jack Bauer before he broke out of the prison last week.
Right, but at the same time, Mark Boudreau is kind of putting this information on lockdown. He's not letting the cat out of the bag that Bauer is all over London. I mean, President Heller doesn't even know. So is that alert going to be everywhere?
Yeah. Do you feel like the response to the drone attack and basically the two British soldiers dying, do you feel like that the response is overblown to what happened? On
the part of the Americans, or on the part of the
hypothetically, okay, this situation happens where basically there's a friendly fire incident where two British soldiers, is it two? Or is it four?
I believe it was 4 soldiers total. I don't know what the breakdown of American and British are.
All right, so let's say it's even 4 British soldiers got killed in a friendly fire operation that happened due to a misfire of American drone airplanes in Afghanistan. Okay?
Right.
Would that result in a protest of hundreds of people picketing the American embassy in London?
Well, these guys were already picketing before that happened. They
Yeah.
were already pretty pissed off about the drone program to begin with. So I think that the sentiment in the homeland here in Britain, I don't think that they're on board with the drones. I don't think they want to be playing the game of drones.
Yeah, I guess I'm just not sure why the British people are so anti the drones even before this incident happened.
Well, I wonder if you would see the same thing in D.C. If this season had been set in D.C., how would people be reacting to Heller back home? I think that one of the core ideas of the season is that this is a controversial thing. That even Heller himself says, like, I don't like it any more than you do, but it's effective, and we got to keep doing it. So he's trying to push this agenda that's effective but unpopular. So I think that that's kind of a theme of Live Another Day.
But why exactly do people have such a big problem with the drones?
I don't know. I don't think that anyone wants little robot airplanes flying around over their heads and doing all sorts of nonsense. That kind of makes me a little uncomfortable. I'm not on board with the Amazon drones.
But it seems like everybody's okay with real airplanes flying around. It seems like nobody has a problem with that. It's just unmanned robots, airplanes flying around.
Do you see Terminator 2 Judgment Day, Rob?
I did.
You know what Skynet's all about?
Yeah.
You got to watch out for that stuff.
Okay, but again, this is not artificial intelligence. This is somebody controlling
Well, they're building an artificial intelligence to control all the drones in this season, right? They're controlling 10 drones at a time. It's scary stuff.
All right, Johnny D. Silvera says it's about privacy issues in the chat room. Okay.
Yeah, I think that's part of it.
Okay. Emad wants to know, glad to see Audrey and Mark is not working out. Cannot wait for her and Jack to finally meet. That would be an explosive scene. Well, I thought they were going to meet up tonight, but apparently not.
I thought that tonight was going to end with a face-to-face of Jack and Heller.
Yeah. And I don't mean to be, flip about the drones issue. If anybody could articulate that better to me in the comments, I would love. I just want to make sure I'm understanding it correctly, because I'm just not sure why it's such a major issue that hundreds of people are protesting about this, and I'm not sure I understand the gravity of what they're protesting against.
We're going to send some literature your way, Rob.
Send me some literature. Maybe I'm against it too.
You probably are. You just don't know it yet.
I probably am. Yeah.
If Bauer's against it, you're against it.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah, Audrey and Mark are not.
Yeah,
not
I'm thrilled to see that they're not working out. The less that they're working out, the likelier it is that Bauer is going to torture Mark Boudreau, which is already going to happen. But I think it'll just dictate the degree of intensity with which Jack is going to go after this guy. I feel like that's a scene that we're going to need, and probably pretty soon.
And then, do you feel like that you have increased odds about Jack and Audrey having some romance during the season?
I think that they're going to make out. I think we're going to get some MO time. I don't know that we are going to get much more than that.
Yeah. Okay. Let's see. Let's go to another question from Jeff. Security lines at the embassy, is that worse than Starbucks? What do you think?
Yeah, it was pretty bad. Pretty bad. Starbucks is pretty bad too, though.
Yeah, but I'm telling you one thing. If I go to Starbucks tomorrow and they ask me, who is this for? Ron Fairbanks.
They might just spell your name Ron anyway. It's close enough to Rob.
Yeah, absolutely close enough.
Rob Fairbanks.
Okay, one more question here from Spicy Wasabi. Was it really necessary for the writers to kill off Prescott and Morris? Well, maybe Prescott was asking for too much money to come back for 24 Live Another Day.
Yeah, they could have just Bobby Drapered him, though.
Yeah. We'll see. I'm interested to see exactly what they're going to do. I'm hoping that this is a scenario where it turns out they're not dead.
Yeah, I do feel like it would be a shame to lose Morris in that way. I feel like I feel bad for Prescott too, but Morris is a character that we spent multiple seasons with. He was a major character in season 6. He was a fairly big character in season 7. Was involved in one of the best scenes of season 5. So I would be bummed if this really is the end for for Morris. I would also love to see Morris doing awesome stuff here in London. I think that would be really cool. But I'm going to take it at face value for now, as much as you ever take anything for face value on 24. And I'm going to assume that Morris and Prescott are gone. And was it necessary? No, probably not. But is it necessary to kill anybody on this show? You could argue that for a while. So certainly there's precedent in terms of killing off major characters. As for killing them off screen this way, I think that's a little bit unfair for the Morris character. I would have liked, if that was going to happen, I would have liked to have seen it on screen.
Luke Foodie says Britain and U.S. drone deal was ending, and they were protesting about the renewal of the lease. And I guess my question would be, well, why are they protesting about the renewal? What happened before this?
Right.
Okay.
I don't know. Maybe we'll get some backstory.
Okay. And here is from Spyrite, keeping score here. Just 2 dammits and no kills for Jack. Not sure about this season.
So did he not kill any of the guys in that drug den last week?
I think there has to have been. I demand a recount on that.
I demand a recount on that. I feel like there must have been at least 1 fatality, if not 2 or 3.
Yes, we demand a recount. Okay? And then from Luke Foodie wants to know, Rob, who is the most annoying aide? Mark from 24 or Linda from House of Cards?
I can't answer this. I'm not a House of Cards man.
No, Mark, there was no sense that Linda from House of Cards was a mole. That she was just kind of a useless, boring character, whereas Mark is a bad guy. So Mark is worse.
But who's more annoying?
I'd say Mark, because Mark has we're actively rooting for Mark to be tortured, where Linda is just like, I just kind of want her to be off the screen.
Yeah, I don't want Mark off the screen, though. I want him on screen getting punched in the face by Jack Bauer.
Okay, well, you're going to get your wish.
I think so.
Yeah, especially once Jack Bauer finds out that Mark is trying to ship him off to Russia.
Now, I have a question. When Jack Bauer finally gets his hands on Mark Boudreau, will it be as Jack Bauer or as Ron Fairbanks?
Probably as Ron Fairbanks.
Do you think that is going to be his name for the rest of the season?
I hope so. But we'll see. We'll see what happens. Actually, okay. I mean, the Ron Fairbanks thing was kind of a bust, so it's probably unlikely.
Probably unlikely.
All right.
He'll live on in our hearts and minds forever.
But I'll tell you one thing that was not a bust. Talking to you here tonight about 24 hour number 3.
Oh, Rob, that's so sweet. And I feel the same way.
Yeah. Okay, well, Josh and I just got done not 24 hours ago talking about this week's episode of Game of Thrones on Post-Show Recap. So if you want to check that out, that show is also available to you guys on postshowrecaps.com. And Josh also got done talking about the Game of Thrones book club this afternoon.
Yes, it was great. Game of Thrones Book Club, which is a podcast for people who have read the books and want to know how the show of Game of Thrones is going to play out based on what we know from the books. So if that doesn't make it clear, it is a spoilery place to be. So don't go there unless you've read the books.
And in this big week on Post-Show Recaps, I will be back on Tuesday at 11 a.m., 8 a.m. Pacific to recap this week's episode of Saturday Night Live, hosted by Charlize Theron.
Did Jack Bauer come back to Saturday Night Live this week?
Did you see him last week in the Beyonce sketch?
Yeah, of course.
Very funny. Funny.
I think there he was Ron Fairbanks.
He probably was. And so I'm going to have that for you guys live on Tuesday morning with Rich Tackenberg. And then on Wednesday, Josh and I are going to get into our Game of Thrones mailbag. And so if you have questions about this show or about Game of Thrones, you can leave them for us at postshowrecaps.com/feedback.
Sounds good.
All right. If you enjoyed this show, as always, we always appreciate it when you give us a thumbs up or like the video on YouTube. And we'd love to hear from you guys in the comments. Comment away. There's no such thing as 24 spoilers, right?
No such thing as 24 spoilers.
Unless you worked on the show or something like that. And in that case, please don't ruin it for us.
Yeah, don't tell us anything.
All right. So we'd love to hear from you guys. So keep the comments coming. Make sure you don't miss an episode. We'll be back next Monday night, 10:15 p.m. Eastern, 7:15 p.m. Pacific on 24 Live. Josh, talk to you again soon.
All right. Bye, Rob.
All right. Take care.